Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at earthquake and tsunami risks in Vancouver.
Oh, getting ready for the big one, are we?
Looks like it. You've given us a whole stack of reports and research to dig into.
Well, it's smart to be prepared. Vancouver is in a seismically active zone.
For sure. And, sometimes those official reports can get a bit dry.
Definitely.
So we're going to try to break it all down, give you the need to know.
And maybe uncover a few surprises.
Exactly. Like, did you know there's a 20% chance of a major earthquake here in the next 50 years?
That's what the reports are saying, yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And they actually outlined 3 different earthquake scenarios.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear them.
Okay, so first up, there's a potential 7.2 magnitude earthquake in the Strait of Georgia.
Okay, that's pretty significant.
Right, and the reports say there's a 5% chance of that happening in the next 50 years.
And then there's the big one, right? The Cascadia megathrust earthquake.
The one we're all kind of waiting for.
That could be up to a 9.0 magnitude.
Wow, 9.0. That's almost unimaginable.
It's a 33% probability of that happening within the next 50 years, according to the reports.
So 5% for a 7.2, 33% for the big 9.0.
Within 50 years, yeah.
And there's a third scenario too, right?
Yes, a 7.0 magnitude intraplate earthquake. That's a 33% chance over the next 50 years as well.
Intraplate. So that means it happens within a tectonic plate.
Right, not at the boundaries like the Cascadia one.
3 different scenarios, different magnitudes, different chances of happening. So where does this leave Vancouver? Are all areas equally at risk?
Not quite. The reports actually highlight certain neighborhoods that are more vulnerable.
Oh, like which ones?
Well, they mention the West End, downtown Eastside, downtown itself, Kitsilano, Fairview, Mount Pleasant.
It's interesting that a lot of those are right in the heart of the city. Why are those areas more at risk?
It's a few things. Many of the buildings are older, so maybe not built to withstand a strong earthquake.
Right, they might not have the same kind of earthquake resistance.
Exactly. Plus, those areas are often on softer ground.
Which can actually amplify the shaking.
That's right.
So older buildings, softer ground.
Yeah.
And those areas are densely populated too, right?
Yeah, which means more potential for injuries or displacement.
So it's a combination of factors.
Well,
What about areas outside Vancouver itself?
the reports specifically call out Delta and Richmond.
What makes them vulnerable?
Their location. They're in the deepest part of the Georgia Basin, so they could experience more intense shaking.
Just like those neighborhoods in Vancouver we talked about.
Exactly. And it's not just earthquakes we need to think about. The reports also talk about tsunamis.
Oh, right, of course. That's a whole other level of threat.
While earthquake shaking is the primary concern, tsunamis are a serious secondary threat.
Makes sense, being on the coast. Which areas are most at risk from a tsunami?
Delta and White Rock.
Because they're right on the water, I guess.
Yeah, they're in Boundary Bay, and they have a lot of low-lying areas.
So even a small wave could cause a lot of flooding.
Exactly. The research suggests potential waves of 1 to 2 meters in Delta and White Rock.
Yeah. That doesn't sound too bad compared to some of the tsunamis we see on the news.
Well, it might seem small compared to, say, a 7-meter wave that could hit the west coast of Vancouver Island.
True. But that low elevation makes a big difference.
A huge difference. What about Vancouver itself, though? What's the tsunami risk there?
Yeah, good question.
Vancouver has a lower risk than Delta and Richmond. Some low-lying areas like Kitsilano, West End, downtown could see some impacts.
But Richmond's actually considered low risk.
Very low. It seems counterintuitive being right on the water, but its location in the Fraser River Delta actually helps protect it.
Oh, interesting. So the delta acts as a barrier.
Exactly. Plus, they've invested in protective infrastructure like dikes.
So that helps to minimize the risk.
Exactly. So we've got the earthquake scenarios, the tsunami risks, and we know which areas are most vulnerable. What do we do with all this information?
That's the big question. How do we move from awareness to action?
Well, the reports offer some practical steps we can take.
Great, let's hear them.
First, understand your own specific risk. The City of Vancouver has a great website with detailed information about risk levels for different neighborhoods.
Oh, that's handy. So you can see exactly what you're dealing with.
Exactly. Then, create a household emergency plan.
What should that include?
Escape routes, meeting points if your family gets separated, and communication strategies.
That makes sense. It's easy to panic in an emergency.
Having a plan can help you stay calm and focused.
Okay, so we've got information, we've got a plan. What about supplies? Do we need to be stockpiling canned goods and bottled water?
It's definitely a good idea to have an emergency kit ready.
What should go in that?
Well, we'll dive into more detail in the next segment, but you'll need at least 72 hours worth of water, food, first aid supplies, and other essentials.
Okay, so water, food, first aid. It sounds like there's a lot to think about.
It might seem overwhelming at first, but it's all about taking it one step at a time.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more we know, the better we can prepare.
Absolutely. We'll be back after the break to talk more about those emergency kits and other steps you can take to protect yourself and your loved ones.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive on earthquake and tsunami preparedness in Vancouver.
Now, before the break, we were talking about emergency kits.
Right, getting those prepped.
What exactly should go in one? Is there some sort of master checklist we can follow? I mean, you can't just throw a few snacks and a bottle of water in a bag and call it a day, right?
You're right, there's a bit more to it than that. Luckily, these reports you've got, they lay it all out.
Oh, good. So what are the absolute must-haves?
Water. That's at the top of the list.
Okay.
At least 4 liters per person per day.
Wow, 4 liters? That seems like a lot.
Well, remember, you're preparing for at least 72 hours of being self-sufficient.
True. Okay, so water's covered. What about food? What kind of stuff are we packing for this earthquake picnic?
Think non-perishable, easy to prepare, and energy boosting. Canned goods, energy bars, dried fruit, nuts, crackers.
Those are good options. Oh, and we'll need a can opener.
Absolutely. Can't forget that.
Right. No use having cans if you can't open them. So water, food, can opener. What else is essential?
A first aid kit for sure.
Yeah, that's important.
Make sure it's well stocked. Bandages, antiseptic wipes, pain relievers, gauze, the works.
Got it. Water, food, first aid. Now, what about staying warm and connected? Those seem pretty important if something happens.
Absolutely. Warm clothes, blankets, a sleeping bag for each person.
Okay, so we're cozy.
Right. And a flashlight with extra batteries, a whistle to signal for help, and a radio.
The radio.
Yeah, a battery-powered one or a hand crank one to stay informed if the power goes out.
Right, because we can't rely on our phones.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget cash in small denominations.
Cash. Why cash?
ATMs and credit card machines might be down, so you'll need cash on hand.
That makes sense. So should we be packing important documents too?
Copies of them, yeah. ID, insurance policies, medical records.
Just in
Exactly. And if you have pets, don't forget their food, water, and any medications they need.
Oh, right, our furry friends. We can't forget about them.
Absolutely not. Okay, so we've got our emergency kits sorted. Now, you mentioned early warning systems before the break.
Right. Those seem crucial, especially if we're talking about earthquakes.
Canada actually has a national earthquake early warning system.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It can give you seconds, maybe even minutes of warning before the shaking starts.
Seconds can feel like a lifetime in that situation.
It can be enough time to take cover, drop to the ground, move away from windows.
So it can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Every second counts when it comes to earthquakes and tsunamis.
What about tsunamis? Is there a warning system for those too?
There is. The warning time can be longer for tsunamis, potentially hours.
Wow, that's good to know.
But these systems are only effective if people know how to get the alerts and what to do when they get them.
So how do they work? Are there sirens or something?
It depends. For earthquakes, the national system is integrated with some wireless carriers, so you might get an alert on your phone.
Oh, that's convenient.
There are also dedicated apps you can download. And of course, radio and television will broadcast warnings.
So lots of options.
But technology isn't always reliable. It's good to know the natural warning signs, too.
Like what?
For a tsunami, a sudden drop in sea level is a big one.
Oh, that makes sense. The water recedes before the wave hits.
Exactly. If you see that, head for higher ground immediately.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
So we've got our kits. We know the warning signs.
Yeah.
Where else can we get information about earthquake and tsunami risks?
The City of Vancouver's website is a goldmine of information. They've got maps, checklists, videos, even an app.
Sounds comprehensive.
It is. They even offer free workshops and online resources.
That's fantastic. It's amazing how much is available to help us prepare.
Absolutely. Remember, preparedness is an ongoing process. It's about taking small, consistent steps.
And creating a culture of safety. I think this has been really helpful. I feel a lot more prepared now.
That's great to hear. Knowledge and preparation are key.
I couldn't agree more. We've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding the risks to preparing our homes and families.
We have, but there's still more to discuss.
Oh, like what?
Well, next we'll talk about how we can prepare our physical spaces and even our mindsets for a potential earthquake or tsunami.
That sounds fascinating.
It is. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've talked about the risks, the plans, the emergency kits.
Right, the basics.
Now what? What can we actually do to prepare our homes and ourselves for when or if it happens?
Well, sometimes thinking about a big earthquake or a tsunami, it can be overwhelming, right?
Totally.
But remember, small steps.
Small steps, okay.
They can make a huge difference. Start simple. Walk through your home. Really look around.
Okay, what am I looking for?
Potential hazards.
Yeah.
What could fall? What could shift during an earthquake?
Like furniture, I guess. Bookshelves.
Exactly. Mirrors, picture frames, anything heavy that's not secured.
I'm just picturing everything flying across the room.
It can happen. Those reports you gave me, they emphasize how important it is to secure those things.
And how do we do that?
Straps, brackets, you can even use museum putty.
Museum putty, okay, that's a new one.
It works. A trip to the hardware store and an afternoon of DIY can make your home a lot safer.
That's manageable. So heavy stuff is secured. What else?
Think about escape routes. If there's an earthquake, do you know the fastest way out of every room?
I haven't really thought about that.
Practice those routes with your family. Make sure everyone knows where to go.
Good point. And what if you're in an apartment building?
Same thing. Get familiar with the building's evacuation plan.
So, small steps, practical stuff. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right. You can take control, be proactive.
What about our mindsets, though? How do we deal with the anxiety of it all?
It's totally normal to feel anxious, especially after everything we've been talking about.
For sure. It's a lot to process.
One of the best ways to manage that anxiety is to, prepare. Take action.
By doing the things we've been talking about.
Exactly. Making a plan, getting your kit ready, securing your home.
It makes you feel less helpless.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in feeling this way. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors.
Share those feelings.
Right. And if it gets to be too much, reach out to a mental health professional. There's no shame in that.
That's good advice. We've covered a lot today, from the science to the risks to practical tips.
A lot of ground, yeah.
What's the most important thing you want people to take away from all of this?
I want them to feel empowered, not scared. Knowledge is power, you know?
I like that. So if people want to learn more, where should they go?
The City of Vancouver's website is a great place to start. They have tons of information, easy to understand.
Perfect. Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been really insightful, actually. Even, enjoyable.
I think it's important to make these topics approachable, less intimidating.
Definitely. Preparedness is a journey, not a destination, right?
Exactly. We're all in this together.
Well said. Thanks for tuning in to the deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.